This is an Ethereal Knives Inquisitor for patch 3.29. You throw a fan of spectral blades, they crit almost every time, and Hrimsorrow gloves turn that physical hit into pure cold. The trick that makes it work is the Inquisitor. Your critical strikes ignore enemy elemental resistance entirely, so all that cold damage lands in full, even on a boss that would normally shrug it off. And this is the patch to play it. 3.29 buffs Ethereal Knives directly. Its base critical strike chance goes from 6% to 10, and it now throws up to 15 blades instead of 13. That buff is the whole reason this works as a league starter. At 6% base crit, a build like this used to force an awkward 2-step, level as a plain spell damage caster, then respec into crit later once you could afford the crit chance. That's a real hassle on a fresh character. At 10% base, you skip all of it. You build as crit from the start, lean on the buffed base damage, and just take crit nodes as you level. No mid-campaign respec, and no swapping your whole gem setup halfway through. That's what makes it a friendly league starter. One continuous build from Act 1 into maps. What you spend currency on later is survivability, not making the skill work, and we'll come back to that. Who's it for? Anyone who wants a fast, screen-clearing spellcaster that still ends up genuinely tanky at the finish line. You cast one skill, you move, things die. Here's the one honest weakness up front. This build has no spell suppression at all. It leans entirely on life, armor, and block instead, which works, but it's a real gap you should know about going in. One note before we start. This guide is built from 2 Path of Building exports ahead of launch, so treat every number as the blueprint, not a live tested guarantee. Here's the core loop. Ethereal Knives is the only damage skill you press. It's a physical projectile spell, and Hrimsorrow converts all of that physical damage to cold so your blades hit as cold. Then 2 things scale that cold hard. Hatred is a cold aura that adds a big chunk of cold damage on top, and the whole build is stacked for critical strikes. This is where the Inquisitor Ascendancy earns the whole build. Inevitable Judgement makes your critical strikes ignore enemy elemental resistance completely. Righteous Providence turns your strength and intelligence into raw critical strike chance. Put those together and you're critting nearly every hit, and every crit ignores resistance. Spell Echo makes each cast fire twice, so you're throwing blades almost constantly as you move. Now the Righteous Fire, this is the transfigured version, Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion, and it does something specific. Instead of adding damage like normal Righteous Fire, it grants a large, more cast speed buff. It still burns you the whole time it's active. So why doesn't that burn kill you? Because the Inquisitor pays for it. You generate Consecrated Ground just by standing still, and your Consecrated Ground makes your life regeneration recover energy shield too. Stack that with the build's own heavy life regen, and the Righteous Fire burn is comfortably covered. To be clear though, nothing here makes you immune to it. The regen simply outpaces the burn. Sniper's Mark is your single target tool. It's a mark you cast by hand, not a reserve curse, so save it for rares and bosses, press it, then unload your blades into whatever it's stuck to. For defense, most of it comes online later, but the shape is worth knowing now. Determination and a big armor base soak physical hits. A shield called Aegis Aurora, plus the Glancing Blows Keystone turn block into your main layer at the finish, and a Val Molten Shell sits on an automatic trigger as an emergency guard. Let's talk about how you actually get there, because this build has a quirk. It's a shadow flavored crit kit worn by a Templar. Ethereal Knives is a level 1 spell available in Act 1, but it isn't a Templar quest reward, and neither are your 2 crit supports or Hatred, so you won't find them in your own reward list. You pick them up through trade, the way any off-class gem gets imported. What the Templar does get on time still matters. Inspiration, a level 31 support for your main link, is a Templar purchase from Clarissa in Act 3. Righteous Fire needs a word here because there's a catch. Regular Righteous Fire is a simple Templar buy from Yena in Act 2. But the version this build runs, Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion, is a transfigured gem and no vendor sells it. You only get it from the Labyrinth by transfiguring the base gem there, so treat it as a later upgrade, not an early pickup. 2 auras are yours by class as well. Determination is a Templar buy from Clarissa in Act 3 at level 24. Spell Echo, the support that doubles your casts, is an Act 4 reward for everyone at level 38. Now the passive tree, and thanks to that base crit buff, is refreshingly simple. You build crit from the start and just take the wheels in order as you level. No respec, and no detour through a spell damage tree you'd only rip out later. So the path of building here shows your actual tree, staged at 5 points as it grows. First the crit core, the damage notables and multipliers you prioritize early, then it branches into the surrounding critical strike and life wheels. By the mid-campaign, most of the core is allocated. By the mid-game, it's nearly complete, with only the final refinements left, and this last one is the finished build. Every wheel filled in, including the extra block keystone the endgame leans on. Here's the whole gem setup at a glance. Your main link is Ethereal Knives with increased critical strikes, increased critical damage, inspiration, and spell echo. Your reserved auras are Hatred, Determination, Herald of Purity, Haste, and Precision. On top of those, Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion gives you the cast speed, and Sniper's Mark handles single targets. There's a neat trick in here too. A Raised Spectre linked with Guardian's Blessing lets you run Zealotry for free, reserved on the Spectre instead of on you, and a Summon Lightning Golem chips in a little more cast speed. A Veil Molten Shell on an automatic trigger is your panic button. And for movement, Shield Charge with faster attacks and momentum gets you around while Flame Dash covers the gaps. So here's that survivability payoff we flagged at the start. Your damage is sorted from the campaign onward, so the jump from the mid-game to the finished build is almost entirely about defense, and the numbers tell the story plainly. In the mid-game before the endgame gear, you're a glass cannon that happens to clear fast. Roughly 3,300 life, decent armor, but only about 20% block, no spell suppression, and unreserved mana that's actually in the negative, with chaos resistance deep underwater at -17. It works, but you feel fragile. The finished level 95 version fixes almost all of it. 2 upgrades carry that. First, an Aegis Aurora shield paired with the Glancing Blows keystone pushes your block up to around 70% in this configuration, and Aegis refunds energy shield every time you block. Second, a replica Dragonfang's Flight amulet adds 3 levels to your ethereal knives and hands you the reservation efficiency to run everything cleanly. The result on paper is a real tank, nearly 4,000 life energy shield restored on block, armor up past 15,000, and effective health roughly 2.5 times the mid-game number. Your chaos resistance flips from -17 all the way to positive, and your mana problem is gone. For the rest of the gear, the pattern is ordinary rare items doing specific jobs. Rare rings with life, chaos resistance, and a reduced mana cost craft. A rare body armor with life, resistances, and an increased hatred effect roll. Cold damage and crit multiplier jewels in the tree, plus a Watcher's Eye that grants crit chance while you're affected by hatred. Now the honest caveats, and we're not dressing them up. First and biggest, there is no spell suppression on this build at any point, so a big elemental spell hit can spike through. You're covered by block, armor, and life instead. That's the trade. Second, at the mid-game, your mana and chaos resistance are genuinely bad, so treat both as your first upgrade targets, not permanent flaws. And third, remember, this is a pre-launch path of building plan. None of it has been tested against live monsters yet, because the patch isn't out, so who's it for? Play this if you like fast crit casters and want one that ends the league as an actual tank, not a permanent glass cannon. The early version is cheap and clears hard. The finished version with its Aegis Aurora and its replica amulet is where it becomes hard to kill. Fast to clear, no suppression to lean on, and genuinely tanky once it's finished. If this saved you some time, a like and a subscribe genuinely help the channel keep making these. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. The Path of Building export is linked in the description.